What the fuck is my life? What the fuck is it? Imagine waking up and sending me an email saying, actually, this study says mixed voice is real. Yeah, I read the study. And of course, if you're going in a very low intensity, mixed voice registration is going to occur in the sense that because you're not using any tension, you're switching seamlessly between the registers and it is perceived as one voice, which is one of the final products that we achieve in my academy. It is not, however, invalidating what the other scientific study found, that it is saying that mixed voice, which is a made-up word anyway, you have to keep that in mind, is not occurring in an intermediate laryngeal mechanism between M1 and M2. And they say it is either giving the timbre qualities of M1 to M2, but it's still M2, or vice versa. Of course, it's like painting the two laryngeal mechanisms the same color. Externally, it'll be perceived as one, right? And then internally it's still two. But mixed voice registration being real, yeah, I mean, ask any natural singer or a kid, because they're literally so intuitive that they're not going to push their voice. They're going to naturally have mixed voice, and you're going to tell them sing this high note, and they're just going to probably destroy that high note in a seamless type of way, or switch to it seamlessly. And maybe someone who's hearing that kid is going to go like, oh my god, dude, that the range that this kid has or whatever is so incredible, because they're not going to be detecting the switch. Now, if an adult who's been brainwashed into pushing their voice all the time by Kent Ampling and other coaches, they're going to go for the same note, and they're either going to push a lot in M1 and everyone's going to be like, okay, like, yikes, that was really strained or flat or whatever happens, or cracked even. Or exactly, they're going to crack. What are they cracking into? M2, right? And it's going to probably sound like shit because they never trained their M2. So this study of the mixed voice registration, if one is in a low intensity and effortless or whatever, while interestingly, scientifically, still doesn't acknowledge the fact that most singers have a totally neglected M2. So even if they eliminate all tension, they're going to sound very, very weak in M2, especially if you've been so used to your M1, thanks to stupid methodology online. Then you're going to find your M2 unvariably weak, and therefore you're not going to want to use it as one voice, right? As part of your voice. So this scientific study reminds me of how out of touch science, of course, can be from the reality that a singer is living in their daily life. Because, for example, the one that I use that says it's not in an intermediate laryngeal mechanism, like the M1.5 dude says here on YouTube, there's this part of the study that says overlap, and they're showing the notes that you can do either in M1 or M2 according to a large amount of subjects that they tested on. It's like, why are you using the word overlap after you just said like they can be mixed? Like, could you choose a different word, or maybe don't, like, not even study that? I don't think it's relevant. So I just cut that out because I try to bring this down to earth to make it applicable. You know, I'm not like a science man. I don't care. I'm just saying, like, whether you think mixed voice a literal made up word, which could mean whatever you want. And when I say made up word, I mean, just think about it. All words are made up. Do you realize that? Like, but if we point at M1, I almost say M1.5, bro. Like, Jesus, they're getting to my head. If we point at the laryngeal mechanisms, I mean, that's closer to objective reality, right? But now if you say mixed voice, that's just too colorful if we're trying to stick to real life. I mean, just test for yourself. I mean, let your voice crack and try to find something in the middle. It's either before it cracks or after it cracks. And you can trace back all your notes by reducing the intensity of it to their origin. In this way, you have to forget about the studies and just test for yourself. What is certain with the results that I'm getting, what is absolutely certain is that you can stay in M1 trying to find this miraculous mixed voice registration by latching onto M1 like your life depends on it. It's never gonna happen. It's never gonna happen. You're neglecting the other side of your voice. Cope and rationalize it however you want, But that is obvious that M2 needs to be embraced. It's just, at this point, I don't care about the scientific studies, which could be hilarious if different scientific studies are contradicting each other, you know? The one that I'm using and this other one or whatever, like literally this says it's not real, this says it's irreal. The way that I interpret it, they're not even contradicting each other, which is what the email sender said to me, like, you're wrong, you know? We are talking about different things. That's the danger of words, in a sense. All I'm saying is it doesn't exist in the middle of the two laryngeal mechanisms. It doesn't exist as a separate register. It can exist as a technique. Obviously, my Mastering the Illusion course makes you come to the place that maybe you could have had as a natural singer. But by eliminating all your tension, you don't suddenly become the king of kings of mixed voice. You're not done in your journey. Hopefully you are. Hopefully. But if I eliminated all the tension in my singing back in the day, I got a very pleasant tone, and the switch, I will admit, it didn't sound so much like a switch, but you could still tell because the falsetto wasn't reinforced enough, mixed enough, chesty enough. It didn't have any of the qualities of the other part of the voice. So yeah, I easily fixed and become like a unified voice by just removing the tension, but I'm still neglecting the living fuck out of the second part of the voice, so it's not going to be perceived as one voice, or maybe it will because like the switch isn't noticeable, so maybe the casual listener won't be able to tell that there's two voices, but it won't sound like connected like you want it to sound, like, you know, like the low part has the same intensity or power as the high one, for example, right? So yeah, magnificent scientific study. I still think it doesn't even contradict what I'm saying because it's not talking about laryngeal mechanisms. It's using the term voice mixed from French in 1960, since 1960. Like, what the fuck are we talking about? It's not down to earth. It's not applicable. It's not even that useful for singers, right? Like, that's my biggest thing. All these Reddit singers, there's like, are you all vocal coaches? Like, I'm not gatekeeping vocal coaching. That shit is cool. Since I don't even want to vocal coach, I mean, I just wanted to sing, you know, and I had to learn and study all this shit because I had no choice. If I could have just done the notes, I probably would have just done the notes. So when I craft the framework, it's 5 minutes long because who gives a fuck? All we know for sure is that mixed voice is a made-up word, like all words, and in objective reality, by latching onto your M1, you're going to get nowhere, that's for sure. Of course, like some people define mixed voice as a very light M1. Literally. That is one of the most common definitions from a few years ago. That's what I remember perfectly from Reddit and YouTube. It was like a light changing the position of the resonance type of M1, which I experimented plenty with, and my range was still like fixated on the note that you know. So when it comes down to getting results and not talking stupidly for no reason, you know where it's at.